Hey everybody, hopefully I can get a small studio out of one of the spare rooms in the house, but for now this is going to have to do. I'm still in my car. I was sent this little article written by Russia Today concerning the Kepler exoplanets. It says here, false positives. More than half of NASA's Kepler exoplanets aren't actually planets. And the beginning photo is the artist's view shows hot Jupiter exoplanet 51 Pegasi Bravo, sometimes referred to as Bellerophon, which orbits a star about 50 light years from Earth in the northern constellation of Pegasus, the winged horse. And if you scroll down, it says, a 5-year study of exoplanet data captured by the Kepler Space Observatory found that half the exoplanet candidates aren't planets at all. They are either too small brown dwarfs or eclipsing binary stars, failed stars. The research, which was conducted between July 2010 and July 2015, 5 years, started with all of the 8,826 objects of interest discovered by Kepler. The sample number was reduced to 129 Kepler objects of interest, KOI, on 125 target stars by removing false positives, stars too faint to be observed, and candidates with orbits of more than 400 days. Now, before I continue, I made a few notes here. A 5-year study isn't really all that long to study the stars. I suggest letting 25 years of collecting data pass before the astounding set of realizations will come upon these Kepler scientists, as it did me back in 2011. They'll find that these objects occur in all mass ranges. In other words, it's a continuum. What you have are stellar evolution processes acting as a continuum, not as a digital kind of thing. And I drew a little graph here. You can see the continuum. You have really big hot stars going down a smooth transition to very cold dead worlds similar to Mercury. And you have the difference. You have a stepped ladder, if you will, a digital kind of thing where, okay, the star is in this stage and then it immediately just transitions to another stage, and then boom, it just transitions to another stage. It doesn't go like this. It's a continuum, meaning some orange dwarfs are going to be bigger than others, some red dwarfs are going to be bigger than other red dwarfs, and it's a long line. That would be similar to a pure sine wave where, you know, it goes up and down, versus a digital modified sine wave where they're stepped. There's a big difference there, meaning there are no stages to stellar evolution. Don't get me wrong. There are stages in essence that we can see similar things between the stars as they evolve, but not stages to where they immediately transition from stage to stage to stage. So you have an orange dwarf just poof, in a second it becomes a red dwarf. It doesn't happen like that. The orange dwarf cools over many millions of years and becomes a red dwarf, taking on more and more characteristics of a red dwarf, and then the red dwarf takes on more and more characteristics of a brown dwarf, and that continues. Continuing on, they have written, over half the giant Kepler planets may not be planets after all. Researchers observed 3 orbits of an object around its star and found that 52.3% of the object were failed stars and another 2.3% were brown dwarfs. And that's another problem they have. They removed what they call false positives. They removed the stars too faint to be observed. And inside of stellar metamorphosis, that ironically means they have removed the planets. If they're too faint, that's what happens to stars, is they become too faint to be observed. So removing them, which is really ironic, They're looking for the planets, yet they remove the planets. That's just really, really, really strange. And they also removed candidates with orbits more than 400 days. And the main claim in this article is that more than one half of all giant Kepler planets may not be planets. But it's unfortunate because the definition they have doesn't exist. There is no scientific definition for exoplanet. They try to make the definition for planet inside of the solar system apply to those objects, but they don't apply at all because they're doing very strange things. Not only that, but when you have failed stars in the mix, say, oh, you have something that fails? No. Inside of stellar metamorphosis, there's no such thing as a star that fails. All stars are successful stars. They cool, shrink, die, and become life-hosting stars, which are, planets. And of course, Michael Z already gave us a new definition for planet and star, which can combine the two into astron. They're astrons. Young astron is a star, and an old astron is called a planet. Also, it brings to light this problem they have is all because they define their planet versus star in terms of mass. Unfortunately, if the star loses mass, how is it then defined? Their definitions are not dynamic, they're static. If a star has this much mass, then it's a star. If an object has this much mass, it's a planet. If it has this much mass, it's a brown dwarf. They don't realize that when the star cools, shrinks, and dies, it loses mass. So one becomes the other as it ages. So that means they have to define things in terms of something else other than mass, which means a whole new philosophy of thinking has to take root, because everything inside of astronomy is mass-centered, which is very, very bad. You can't make astronomical events mass-centered because you miss out. And that's what's happening right now. They're not understanding what happens to stars as they evolve, and they don't understand how a planet forms, not realizing, they're the same thing because both lose mass. They were hoping from 10 to 20% were not planets. Turns out over half were not. Well, they're all new planets. So their statistics is irrelevant. And a really weird statement that they made was that they still don't understand, quote, what is the physical mechanism that forms Jupiter-like planets with orbital periods as little as a few days? They're approaching the problem inside of the protoplanetary disk theory. Regardless of the PP disk theory is incorrect. It's false. It's 17th century dogma that's never been vetted out of astronomical interpretations. If they would just realize that Jupiter-like planets are just older stars, and that the host star is much younger than the object orbiting it, then they would have a richer understanding of nature. But they dogmatically refuse to make that correction because of some unknown circumstances. My guess is that they're trained to look at the nature with a specific set of beliefs, and that's that. If it deviates, if anything, any theory or any idea deviates from the belief, they discard it immediately because it cannot possibly correct, and it doesn't fit into their worldview of how the stars interact with each other, and it doesn't fit into their worldview of what they want to be correct, regardless of, clearly they're wrong. Another quote here is: a detailed characterization of the internal structure of these planets should shed new light on planet formation and evolution theories. It's not going to shed new light at all. In order to shed new light on planet formation and evolution theories, you have to understand that planets actually evolve. Yet, when you go online, and you can type this in, look up planet formation and also look up planetary evolution, you'll see a lot of theories on planet formation. Unfortunately, what you'll find is that there are no theories at all on planetary evolution. How does a star evolve? That's easy. But they have no theories of how a planet evolves. There's no theory for how Jupiter evolves or what's going to happen to it. There's no theory about Neptune, or Uranus, or Saturn. No theories exist out there which explain what happens to the objects as they cool and die, yet they are staring at us in the face. The Jupiter clearly is going to become like a Saturn, and the Saturn is going to become like a Neptune, and Neptune is going to become like a Uranus, and Uranus is going to lose its thick atmosphere and become like Earth. It's going to leave the solid rocky ball in the center with the magma and the oceans, and eventually the Earth is going to become like Venus and like Mercury, where it's a cold, dead world that still has its iron core interior. It's very easy to understand, but you know, when you have incorrect theories, you can only see so much with that theory. With stellar metamorphosis, you can see a whole lot more to the stars than what meets the eye. But you know, that's basically this article in a nutshell. As well, a few thoughts. They can find these objects very well. They're very skilled at finding them, but interpreting them is not their strength. So it's kind of weird. They're gatekeepers. They have these large buildings and these grand telescopes and all this money and power, yet they don't even know how to open the building. They don't even know how to get inside because they don't have the key. With stellar metamorphosis, my viewers now have the key. They can get inside these buildings and interpret these stars and planets in the correct light and actually bring understanding to themselves and to others around them.